Grace Kids. Today we're going to be talking about something that kind of reminds us of what God has done in the past for Israel, and that is the crossing of the Jordan, River. Now, what is reminding me of the past? Because back when they left Egypt, what happened? The Egyptians were chasing them down. They thought that they were in a strategic trap, so the Egyptians were going to take them over, and all of a sudden God told Moses to part the waters of the Red Sea, and it happened, and there was dry ground. And so now they've come up to a point where God held back the Jordan River for his people to cross. You say, what? Why? Because that was the last thing that was blocking them from getting into the Promised Land. They needed to get into the Promised Land, and they needed to cross this river. And so God actually held the river back so they could cross. Now, this is coming from Joshua chapter 1 through 4. Chapters 1 through 4. Joshua 1 through 4. Okay? And our verse that we're going to be jumping into is Deuteronomy 31:8. And the Lord, he it is that doth go before thee. He will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed. Again, this is God telling the people, don't fear. Don't worry about it. I'll be with you. It's going to be okay. And so, how can we glorify God? That's going to be our question for the next couple of lessons. How can we glorify God? We glorify God by loving him and obeying him. By loving him and obeying him. That's how you can glorify God. It's that simple. It's something that you could do every single day, every moment of your life, by loving God and obeying him. So try to look up that verse, Deuteronomy 31:8, and even if you can memorize it, that would be great. So you could always remember, I don't have to fear in any part of my life because God is with me. So God's promise was to Abraham that his descendants would live within Canaan. And this is what's going to happen. After 40 years of being in the wilderness, it's time to enter. And what did I say earlier? The only thing holding them back is the Jordan River. And God goes up to Joshua, this new leader, no longer Moses. Moses is gone. And he tells him, be strong and courageous. Why? Because what we've said over and over again, this is a new thing for them. There's a people that already inhabit this land. It might be a little bit scary, but he can be strong and courageous because God is behind him. And so as they're going in and seeing this river that's before him, it's deep, it's wide, and they've got people upon animal upon animal. All these things that they've got to get over this river. It would take them forever to build the contraptions that they need in order to cross. And so it's not like they could just swim everybody over. Some people can't swim. And so these are the things, and even with all the stuff on their back, they would never be able to get over it. So God can make this happen. They have to trust in him. They have to put their faith in God for this. So as we move forward, God told them what to do, and they obeyed. Isn't that so important for all of us? When God tells us to do something, we need to obey. So the priests carried the ark of God ahead of the people to the edge of the river. And you say, okay, the Ark of the Covenant, that's something that you've mentioned a few times, Pastor. What is that? Can you show us? Well, I have this cool little image model of what it might have looked like. Okay? And my parents got this for me, so I'll bring it in close so you can be able to see. And this is what it would have looked like. This is where they would have carried these handles. That's how they would have carried. And you say, what's inside? Well, we did talk about how there was the law inside so that they could take it out and they could read it to the people every 7 years. Isn't that what Moses stated? And then There's other things like manna, and there is the staff that's in here that budded. Oh, we just lost one of the carrying rods. But this is the staff, and it budded, and it was all reminders of how God had shown himself faithful all throughout this time. And so that's what they're carrying up to the river's edge. Now, as they're carrying it up, they have to have faith. They have to step up to the edge, and then God's promised that as soon as they step up to the water, that God will part that. God will stop the water, and it would dry up, and this would remind them that God was with them. So the rest would have to follow behind the priests. So wouldn't this have to take a step of faith for you to carry this thing out there? Okay, come on, can't you just do it before we carry the thing out there? I mean, how long do we wait once we get it out there? You know, maybe some of us would start thinking that way, right? And so here the priests, they have to have faith. Joshua tells the people, so they did exactly what happened. He brought all the people out. The priest stepped up, and as soon as they hit the edge, the water stopped. And there was dry ground in the middle of the river. Immediately. According to science, that is an impossibility. That's crazy. Yet that's what God does. Because if it would have been all wet and muddy and soaked, the people would have never gotten across. Never. But yet God dried it out immediately so that they could cross along the middle of the river. So God actually told Joshua, I want you to take 12 stones from the middle of this riverbed. Take 12 stones and put them down in a memorial. As soon as you bed for the night and you camp for the night, I want you to put that up as a memorial. Why? Because when people would look back as time had passed, they'd look back, they would see it, and they would ask, what's all those rocks there for? I mean, don't you as kids always ask about things? I mean, Kian is asking me all kinds of questions while I'm trying to do something. All kinds. And I'm trying to finish a job. And he goes, why is this? Why? Okay. That's what we do. We ask, why is it there? Why are there so many stones all piled up? And they could turn around and say, well, it's because God showed himself faithful to us, that he was mighty. And it's to prove that he was with us, and he stopped the water, and it dried up for us immediately so we could cross the river, so we could get into the promised land. This is how good our God is. So this was a constant reminder for them to go back. Why do we need reminders? Because we forget. I mean, how many times has your parents asked you to go and do something and you've forgotten it just like that? It's almost like there's a mind erase, right? It happens. And we forget so quickly all the things God has done, especially when things get tough. We think, oh, we can't do this, we can't. Yes, we can. God is with us. So as soon as they crossed, the waters immediately went back to normal. It was the same kind of river like it was before. You say, how does Christ connect to this story? Well, I'm glad you asked. God showed his power to the Israelites so that they would trust in him, so that they would have increased faith. They would trust him, that God was going to be with them all the way through. You know, Christ showed his power as well. How did he do it? He showed it through miracles. You know, when he calmed the storm by just saying, peace, be still. When he put mud on the eyes of the blind man and he had to go wash it off in a certain water. Miracle, he could see again. He cast out demons. He healed the lame. There's so many things that Christ did to show himself big, mighty, awesome. He fed 5,000. Can you imagine that? That would be so cool to be able to watch. And yet God showed all these things. Why? so that we could see that He is God, and we could trust in Him that His way, His salvation is good for us. It's enough for us, and so we could get saved. I'm saved. What about you? I'm trusting in Jesus because I've seen His power in my own life. Have you seen His power? Are you going to trust in our God, in Jesus, His Son that He sent to die for us? I mean, our God is good to provide these things for us. So I hope you enjoyed that lesson. What are some of the questions that we need to ask in order to summarize and to make sure that we remember? And that is, okay, so what did God tell Joshua as he became a new leader? He said, be strong and courageous. So how did God help the Israelites as they crossed? How did He help them? What happened? He told them to bring the Ark of the Covenant up to the edge of the water, and then He would stop the water so they could be able to cross on what? Muddy ground? No, dry ground. And then what did He say to do to memorialize this huge miracle? Grab 12 stones and make a memorial. Build them up to where it's a memorial. You say, why do I need to have memorials? Why do I need these reminders? It's because we forget so fast, don't we? We forget. And what are some commands that God gives us that we need to be strong and courageous on? See, there's some things that God's called us to do that we don't see every aspect of what He's called us to. And we just got to follow. We don't know what's going to happen 50 years down the road. Even 10 steps ahead, we don't know what's going to happen. We just got to take the next step. So we need to be strong and courageous. All right, kids, make sure you look up Deuteronomy 31:8 and then read Joshua 1-4. But here's an activity for you. It's a science experiment. All right? I want you to be able to see what happens when you can grab some dirt or even just go outside and take the hose and put some water on some ground that you could be able to watch, and then see how fast it dries. Does it dry in 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 1 minute, or does it take a few hours for that ground to dry? The sun has to beat upon it. Now you get to be reminded of the miracle that God did in stopping the water and immediately becoming dry. That's a God thing. It's because we have a great God. I hope you have a good one. We'll talk to you later.